The Lord be with you. Read from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples came to the other side of the sea, to the territory of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, at once a man from the tombs who had an unclean spirit met him. The man had been dwelling among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any longer, even with a chain. In fact, he had frequently been bound with shackles and chains, but the chains had been pulled apart by him and the shackles smashed, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the hillsides, he was always crying out and bruising himself with stones. Catching sight of Jesus from a distance, he ran up and prostrated himself before him, crying out in a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High? I adjure you, by God, do not torment me." He had been saying to him, "Unclean spirit, come out of the man." He asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Legion is my name. There are many of us." And he pleaded earnestly with him not to drive them away from that territory. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there on the hillside, and they pleaded with him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." And he let them, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine. The herd of about 2,000 rushed down a steep bank into the sea, where they were drowned. The swine herds ran away and reported the incident in the town and throughout the countryside, and people came out to see what had happened. As they approached Jesus, they caught sight of the man who had been possessed by Legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind. And they were all seized with fear. Those who witnessed the incident explained to them what had happened to the possessed man and to the swine. Then they began to beg him to leave their district. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed pleaded to remain with him. But Jesus would not permit him, but told him instead, "Go home to your family and announce to them all that the Lord in his pity has done for you." Then the man went off and began to proclaim in the Decapolis what Jesus had done for him, and all were amazed. The Gospel of the Lord.
So we have the story of an exorcism today in the Gospel, right? And I think that we have sometimes maybe an idea of what it means to be possessed, and it's like you're a robot, like the devil possesses you and you're completely under his power. And I don't know that that's the case that's presented to us. We see people who are under these evil influences, like this man. What does he do? Does he run away from Jesus? He runs to Jesus, prostrates himself on the ground, and asks for healing, essentially. Did you notice that in the story? And it's very kind of, there's a lot of details there. And I was talking to somebody who was being trained to be an exorcist, and I says, what's the training like? And he says, we're going through all of Jesus's encounters with evil spirits in the gospel. And there's a lot of them, And I said, yeah, you're right. When you start paying attention to it, there's a lot of them. Now, I'm going to tell a true story. I don't know that I've ever told this story publicly before. But anyway, one day, and this happens from time to time, a lady came to the office. She wasn't Catholic. She needed to see a Catholic priest, which I was like, my first thought was, this is a St. Vincent de Paul person that wants some material gift from the church. That was my thought. Anyway, she came in. I talked to her. She said she wanted to go to confession. Well, she wasn't Catholic. And I said, well, let's go over to the confessional and we'll talk. So we went over to the confessional and we start to talk. And she starts telling me about her life. And it was horrible, horrible, horrible things that she had done and horrible things that had happened to her. And as she was talking to me, she was kind of making her confession. It's a true story. She starts foaming at the mouth and starts twitching. And I'm sitting there in the confessional. I'm like, what do I do? So what did I do? What did I do? I had happily just been reading about spiritual warfare and how the Jews in the Old Testament exorcised demons. And one of the ways they did this was by praying the Psalms, Psalm 91 in particular. And I have part of Psalm 91 memorized because I pray it often. So I prayed some of Psalm 91, then I prayed the St. Michael prayer. And so there she is, kind of twitching and whatever. And she kind of comes around, and we talk briefly, and she's really ready to go. She's like, she's ready to leave. She's ready to get out. And I tried to calm her down some and invite her to please come see me again. And she never did, okay? But it was a powerful moment. Now, I want to say this to you all. I don't know that there was an exorcism that happened there. I think she came. She wanted healing. She sought out a Catholic priest. And exorcism is a sacramental. What does that mean? We have the sacraments and we have sacramentals. The sacraments are more powerful than the sacramentals. See, the sacraments, we receive the grace of God. But someone that's really possessed, it would be very difficult for them to make a good confession. Why? Because they're possessed. So that's where the exorcism comes in. Now again, the story of Legion and my story is different from that story, I know. But this is what we need to know. This is what we need to know. We are in the midst of a spiritual battle. And evil is real. And it takes possession, if you will, of people's minds and hearts. And they do all kinds of awful things, right? But a good confession heals us of the power of Satan. It does. A good holy communion. Blessing ourselves with holy water. So this spiritual battle we're in, it's on every page of the gospel. And so, my brothers and sisters, we are grateful for the gift of faith, aren't we? And we are grateful for the power of the Holy Spirit. And we're like this man who was grateful for what God had done for him.